Good evening from the News Radio, 1120 a.m. and 93.7 FM KPNW studios. I am Bill Lundun, and I am brought to you by, and news is brought to you by, Dr. Michael Bratland of Chris Dental, where now they can clean your teeth with lasers. It's true, they do. If you don't believe me, call Dr. Michael Bratland. Just pick up the phone, call him and say, really? You clean teeth with lasers? And he'll say, yes, as a matter of fact, we do. All right, here's a look at some of the stories we're following. Oh, here's some fun political news. The Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee on Wednesday has actually moved Oregon Representative Val Hoyle to its front-line list of vulnerable incumbents. And that signals the first-time representative from Eugene is in, well, danger of being unseated by her challenger, Republican Monique Despain. Now, Hoyle's problem has to do mostly with her strong connections to the troubled marijuana company, LaMotta. That company gave to many Oregon Democratic campaigns, and they did so by delivering cash in brown paper bags. What could go wrong? And also LaMotta played a key role in the political downfall of former Secretary of State Shemia Fagan. Now, Hoyle's connection and favors to LaMotta marijuana is currently under federal investigation. That situation goes back to Hoyle's tenure as the head of the Oregon Bureau of Labor and Industries, and documents showed that she pushed hard for the Bureau to give a $554,000 grant to a nonprofit organization that was founded by Rosa Cesaris, a campaign donor and, of course, co-owner of the troubled cannabis company LaMotta. Even though staffers warned against the grant, the U.S. Department of Justice has been investigating LaMotta and its ties to Oregon politicians for more than a year. To add to Hoyle's leadership missteps was, as the head of Oregon's Bureau of Labor and Industries, two black female employees in leadership positions say they were discriminated against fairly openly, and even though Hoyle was in full knowledge of the situation, she did nothing to stop it. And they quit. And then they turned around and sued. And guess what? They won. So get ready for a little bit of sticker shock. Okay, now you know that Oregon has had a lot of conversations about drug and alcohol treatment systems and the way that it's failed people since ballot measure 110 went into effect, and that it was supposed to increase people's access to drug and alcohol treatment. All right, the state, very quietly, published an estimate of the cost to close the gap in Oregon's drug and alcohol treatment system. $6.85 billion a year. Let's let that sink in. That is vastly more than the $500 million or so currently that agencies spend towards drug and alcohol treatment. Most of the new spending would go to the cost of employing, training, and the workforce needed to staff the new and growing programs. The report was written by Public Consulting Group, and it was done at the behest of the Oregon Health Authority. And the report was blunt. I'll quote one of the lines from it. The cost estimates provided in this analysis are undeniably high. You think? $6.85 billion a year? That's more than the entire budget of the city of Portland. Anyway, the report recommended that the state figure out either how to optimize its existing spending, which you know the state won't do, or find new sources of funding. And the timing on that is really interesting because soon a legislative task force is going to put their heads together and talk about a bump, or in this case, they're going to attach rockets to increased alcohol taxes. And of course, the report helpfully adds the state could eliminate the kicker, which would return up to $5.6 billion in tax payments. Well, that was this year's return, and those returns come every 2 years. And this year was a record year. Rarely does it ever get to $5.6 billion. And, of course, eliminating the kicker is a favorite conversation of Democrats in the legislature. And even if they eliminated the kicker, it wouldn't even come close to making up the difference and equating to $6.8 billion a year, the amounts that they suggest we spend in the report. All right, let's go back in time. Remember Oregon's funnest governor, Kate Brown? And remember how she just decided, well, I'm going to start releasing prisoners because it's the right and equitable thing to do. And if you recall, several months ago, we reported to you one of those prisoners that Governor Kate Brown released early allegedly was a serial killer. All right, let's talk more about said alleged serial killer. That would be Jesse Lee Calhoun. Now, he has been indicted so far on 3 counts of murder. And we now know a little bit more about some of the things that a secret grand jury decided prior to this indictment. So he was released, as I said, from prison by Governor Kate Brown early because he was a nice man. Prosecutors formally filed the Multnomah County Circuit Court indictment a week after announcing that they had charged Jesse Lee Calhoun with 3 counts each of second-degree murder and second-degree abuse of a corpse. It's a simple 2-page document, and it doesn't reveal a whole lot of details, but it does show that authorities called 16 witnesses, mostly police detectives, forensics investigators, and members of the Oregon Medical Examiner's Office, to a closed-door grand jury proceeding that was held May 14th, 15th, and 16th. And it accuses the 39-year-old Calhoun of causing the death of 24-year-old Charity Perry, 31-year-old Bridget Webster, and 32-year-old Joanna Speaks, and then, after murdering them, taking their bodies somewhere else to, well, dispose of them. Now, it doesn't say how the women died, but we do know from a previous report from the Clark County Medical Examiner's Office that Speaks had died of blunt force trauma. Now, we know at least a little bit of a timeline. Perry's first killing came on March 8th of 2023. That was followed by Speaks' death on March 18th, and then Webster's murder on April 26th. One of the women not named in the indictment, and this killing is still under investigation, would be 22-year-old Ashley Rial. Now, the thing is, she has been linked to Calhoun, both by Ashley's father and by Calhoun's ex-girlfriend. Multnomah County Sheriff's deputies recovered Perry's body, by the way, April 24th from a culvert near Ainsworth State Park in Multnomah County. Prior to that, authorities said Perry was last seen in a downtown outdoor drug market and was living on the streets. Speaks' body wasn't found until April 8th, where she was thrown in a derelict barn near Ridgefield in northern Clark County 3 weeks after investigators say she was murdered. Investigators previously indicated that Speaks was killed in mid-March. Webster's body was found in rural Polk County near Dallas 5 days after her killing. Calhoun, for his part, is still in the Snake River Correctional Institute in Ontario, Oregon, near the Idaho border, where he's been serving out the remainder of a 4-year car theft and burglary sentence that was commuted by then Governor Kate Brown, because it was the good thing to do. He wasn't a dangerous criminal. Calhoun was arrested last July after the Multnomah County DA, Mike Schmidt, asked Governor Tina Kotek to revoke his commutation, and at that point, they only cited some sort of unspecified criminal activity. Well, it's a mystery that's been washing ashore, not only on the southern Washington coast, but on the Oregon coast. And it's been washing up from Astoria all the way down to Waldport. And they are tar balls. And at this point, nobody knows where they're coming from. So right now, responders making up local state and federal officials are trying to go out and clean the beaches up, prioritizing beaches that constitute what they call a sensitive habitat, for instance, habitats for snowy plovers and the like. Responders are also coordinating to make sure their efforts protect cultural resources of native tribes. And right now, all officials are saying, if you go to the beach and you see these oily patties, don't touch them. Because that's the first thing that people want to do when they see an oily patty on the beach is go, ooh, let's pick it up and play with it. They also helpfully tell us, don't touch deceased animals or other contaminated material. What a bunch of killjoys. Man, take all the fun out of going to the beach. Can't play with dead animals. So after wasting taxpayers' money, and millions of dollars of it, fighting a class action lawsuit that never went to trial, the state of Oregon is now settled with stipulations to a suit brought by Disability Rights Oregon and A Better Childhood to actually do something about Oregon's incompetent and mismanaged child welfare system. Neither group, by the way, were suing for money. They just wanted better care for kiddos placed in foster care and that they receive less abuse in more stable homes. But the state, of course, fought it for 5 years. The two sides reached an out-of-court settlement agreement in the Wyatt B. versus Kotek case. The settlement stipulates Disability Rights Oregon, A Better Childhood, which is a national group, and the state will agree upon a neutral expert to actually oversee the foster care system, and that they'll work with the individual to improve the child welfare system, primarily by reducing the rate of abuse and mistreatment and improving the quality of placements for foster kids. The lawsuit was brought on behalf of 10 kids. In the years, by the way, that the state spent fighting to defend its, shall we say, beleaguered child welfare system, 5 of the kids aged out of the child welfare system that was charged with raising them. And how has it turned out for them? Well, one of those kids is now in state prison. Another is living in their car. 3 others are struggling to transition into adulthood. And 2 of those 3, well, actually now have kids. Emily Cooper, the legal director of Disability Rights Oregon, says, quote, "When I think about the amount of time and the amount of money that has been spent litigating this, it's really infuriating." No doubt. At this point, it's unclear what the final bill is going to be to taxpayers who will pay for this. But right now, so far, the state claims that it's paid approximately $18 million of taxpayer money to defend its trouble-ridden, utterly incompetent, and woefully bureaucratic child welfare system. Yeah. And you can get what she says when she's infuriated by all of this. This came about, this suit, 5 years ago. The state could have agreed to this settlement 5 years ago and actually started working on, shall we say, improving outcomes for kids. They could have done that. They could have started it 5 years ago. But no, let's spend millions upon millions of dollars protecting incompetent state employees. All right, this is nice. You know those peaceful protesters they always talk about that are protesting Israel and support Palestine? Well, those peaceful protesters over the Memorial weekend showed back up at Portland State University and were doing their protests. Well, during that, the chief of police at PSU suffered a medical emergency while responding to the demonstrators. And so what did these peaceful protesters do? Everything that they possibly could to keep emergency responders from helping the man. These are peaceful protesters. Finally, Portland police officers were able to clear a path so that emergency medical technicians could rush in and grab the PSU chief, who, by the way, is now recovering. Also, Portland police made some arrests in that particular situation. All right, Well, this look at your news has been brought to you by Dr. Michael Bratland of Chris Dental. He's a good dude. Go see him and let his technicians clean your teeth with space-age alien lasers. Get real, Rick.